Hello everyone, I'm your host Susan Lee Martano and welcome back to my show, The INNERview. Movie soundtracks leave a lasting impression on the viewers. I'm sure that if you recall some of the scenes from your favorite movies, you might also recall the music too, yes? For today's show, I have none other than Shim Hyun-jung, who is the music director for Oldboy, the amazing movie from 2003, which garnered the grand prize of the jury from the Cannes Film Festival, and also the 2010 movie Man from Nowhere, and she won Best Music. Now we're going to meet the woman behind the music, and we're going to see her today. Film music director Shim Hyun-jung creates beautiful melodies that perfectly blend with the scenes to bring laughter and tears to the audience. She won the Best Music Award at the Korea Film Awards for her work in the 2003 movie Oldboy, and again in 2010 for the music in the movie The Man from Nowhere. Then in 2012, she tried something quite different. She composed music for a documentary series called The Tear Series, which touched the hearts of countless viewers. Later, she was invited to the Vancouver and Toronto International Film Festivals for her work in the 2012 movie A Werewolf Boy. With more than a decade-long experience in making film music, Shim Hyun-jung creates original pieces that are in demand by the film industry. Stay tuned to find out the stories behind her music and achievements right now. Hello and welcome to my show. It's so wonderful to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you.
You know, it's such a pleasure to have such an accomplished, world-renowned composer here on my show. And I know you've worked on some of the most incredible movies in Korea's history, and so we're super thrilled to have you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what types of projects are you working on these days?
Well, I'm working on one independent film called Abby. It's meaning father or daddy. Daddy. It's about the Korean father and the son. And there is another film that I'm working on called The Five. It's about the revenge. And women's revenge.
Oh, that sounds like a really intense kind of movie. You're also doing some work abroad, and I'd love to know what you're doing abroad.
Well, I've made the music for the film called Quan of Spring. Okay, this is Vietnamese film, but directed by French director. It's interesting.
Wow.
Yes, this French director was living in Vietnam a couple of years, and he's fascinated by culture in Asia, and he created some Asian stories, which has more beautiful than Asian film for me, because he knew how beauty this is. Because as an Asian, we don't know what's the difference from Western and what's the beauty. Sometimes we don't actually know, but this director knows the beauty of Asian culture and philosophy, and he made a story out of it. So it was quite unique film. So this should be maybe in the film festival soon. And there is another film, Indian film also.
A Bollywood film?
Bollywood film, but they're not that. There is no dance
dancing?
and no singing.
No, like 15 million people dancing the same dance in flashy clothing?
Unfortunately,
No.
not that one. But this is more noir, they say noir kind of film. Because India, there are a lot of change, like cultural change, and there are people who are suffered by this cultural change and atmosphere change. So this film is about that, and it was quite interesting to work with the Indian film. A good experience.
Could you tell us a little bit about your process for working on some of those songs for the film?
Well, first when you read the script, sometimes I easily understand what's going on and what kind of personality they are, but sometimes I don't know why they are doing certain stuff in the movie. So we talk to the director and we have some communication with the writer or director or producers. Then they go to shooting. So when they are shooting for 2 or 3 months, we start to compose music. And after they finish shooting, when they are doing the editing, we make the music, and after finish the editing, we complete the music.
I see.
At worst case, they give us like 1 month to finish composing and recording and mixing and mastering and then everything.
Is that typical of a Korean film industry in particular, or is that something that's kind of universal worldwide for the movie industry?
I haven't been working on other countries' project yet much, but maybe universal case. Depends on the project, maybe. Depends on the project.
I mean, that's such a short turnaround time
Right.
to create, I mean, masterpieces, really, in a short time. I mean, do you also have a staff that you work with, or is it all by yourself?
It depends on the project, but most of the time I compose, so a lot of pressure and stress when I had to make music at the end.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of stressful job.
So basically you start from the script and you get an idea of the characters and the story and maybe what kinds of feelings kind of come out of that, and then you don't actually start the composition of the pieces until the shooting has already begun then.
Yes, in my case, I want to compose first I see the visuality first. Okay, sometimes it's same story and same characters, but it could be different by playing by certain actor. For instance, like there is the movie The Man from Nowhere that I made the music.
Yes.
And originally we wanted to put the guy was like a common Korean Korean guy. So it's like 40, over 40 or 50, this easy fat Korean guy. But once the one being the actor was taking that role, the movie came out totally different.
Yeah, he's definitely not an ajashi.
Not an ajashi.
He's a very handsome guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Handsome, young ajashi. So that's why I want to see the movie first, or film or script. The footage first, then I compose so that it can perfectly fit into the film.
I see. Wow. Hyunjung, you are not only an accomplished composer, but you're also a very famous and well-known music director for films. And I'd love to hear some of the projects that you've had a chance to work on.
Well, 10 years ago, 2003, I worked on the Old Boy, and 2004 I became a music director, which means I'm taking charge of the music throughout the film. So first one was Everybody Has Secret and 사과 and World of Silence and Once in a Summer and Mother Never Dies, or The Man from Nowhere and Werewolf Boy last year.
You also won the Best Music Award twice with the Korea Film Festival, or the Film Awards. And if you could tell us what movies they were for and what your experience was like working on the films.
The awards, the first one was by the Old Boy, and the other one was by the Man from Nowhere. It has like 10 years of difference, time difference. So I was lucky to get an award.
Wow. Old Boy is one of my favorite Korean movies of all time, and I'm curious, I'm sure you're asked this question a lot, but what was your inspiration for the music for Old Boy? Because it was such an intense movie. I mean, such a thriller, and the movie music was just amazing. How did you get your inspiration?
Well, that music was the first film, almost first film music that I've done after I came back from United States. So after finishing all the study, that was the first project that I was able to make a composition for film. And there was 2 other composers, but I was the main composer, and I was able to do what I wanted to do. So I was enough passionate and motivated. And once I read the script, it was very strong, very strong and special and unique. And so I remember myself, I was crying while I was reading the script.
Wow.
So it was inspiration came out from the stories and my situation, maybe because I was very frustrated once I came back from United States after the study. In order to get into the industry, I had hard time. And so not only the experience that I had before getting into the industry in Korea, but also the time when I was in United States for 5 years. I studying music, but at the same time I had kind of hard experience because it was my first experience ever to live alone in other country with other culture, and it was kind of hard.
After leaving the States, after being there for a few years, you came back to Korea and worked pretty much right away on Oldboy. How did you get connected with the people for getting that job? I'm sure that anyone would have wanted the chance to work with the director of the movie, and you're kind of a new face. So how was that possible?
I came back to Korea 2000, and at that time in Korea, we didn't really have many film schools or like schools for commercial music, or film industry was not as big as now. It was kind of much smaller. But we had a potential, and there was a Korean film called New Wave. There, let's say certain kind of films were very recognized by Western people, Western viewers. So they wanted to, a lot of young people want to get into the film industry. So they needed people. They also needed professional music composer for film. But in Korea, we didn't have anybody who studied film music or film music in even all over the world. There are not many schools who educating people for especially scoring for film.
I see.
But United States, the school that I went had those classes. So I was able to take those classes, and I have experience of making music for the film in the United States, and I guess in the people who are in film industry in Korea, they buy my maybe education.
When you first knew that you got this job with the Oldboy movie, what was your impression and what did you feel?
I was overwhelmed by the story and by the chance that I am the main composer for this film. I was very nervous every day by day, and I also was very happy to making music for this film because I love the stories.
So many movies leave us with great impressions of the amazing scenes just by listening to the music. And Oldboy has some very powerful scenes and very powerful music. One song in particular, The Last Waltz, was very unique with its clarinet sounds, and I'm curious how you decided to use those instruments and what were your thought processes in making that song?
Well, I was a composer, and there was 2 other composer and supervisor. Supervisor suggested us to make waltz, like a dance piece. And the clarinet is something we can recall our young or nostalgia. Maybe this timbre, these sounds is recalling some nostalgia related. So when I make this piece, I call the name Nostalgia. So we look back when we are young, and the dance piece like a waltz, the taking the steps, like it's the 3 beats, like a taking the steps, and we have to follow the steps, even if we don't like. It's like a time, you know. That's what I thought. Even if we don't want to follow the time, we had to follow the time, and we have to take a dance, even if we don't want it, you know. So I guess clarinet, nostalgia, and the waltz is some idea came out in that way.
After working on Old Boy, you continued to work in the Korean movie industry, and you worked on some thrillers and some action films. Tell us about that too.
Well, in Korea, when you want to be a film composer, you have to work on all different type of films, like action and thriller and comedy or romantic comedy. Yeah.
So did you have a particularly favorite genre to work with, or maybe a genre that you would rather not work with but did it because of, you know, paying the rent?
Well, actually, I'm not happy working with the TV dramas, like soap operas, because it's about the women's jealousy. So I don't really like working on those things. However, other parts, like other type of the film, well, maybe I'm not good at it, but well, good to try, maybe.
You just said that you prefer not to work on dramas, but you worked on a drama just a year ago, right? And it drew a lot of attention. Can you tell us about that drama?
The Werewolf Boy? Yes. Well, it's about the love between the werewolf boy and the Korean girl. This werewolf boy was found in the house, and they are living together, and this girl is teaching him how to behave as a man, and he is accepted as a part of the family, but they had to leave this house, and this boy has to left alone, so they couldn't continue to be a family anymore. But this boy is never dying, so kept waiting for this girl, and this is about the love which is beyond the time and space.
While you were working on this kind of dramatic film, The Werewolf Boy, how did you decide to use the music, and what were your inspirations for the different scenes?
Well, the director requested the song for specific scene. This girl is supposed to compose for herself, and she's supposed to write the poem or the lyrics. So director wrote the lyric, and he asked me to make the compose. And this composition was like a girl who is in 10 years, like a teenager, and who is so pure and waiting for the man in like fantasies. So I made a music for this film, especially about specific sequence and specific the role or the character, or I don't know how to say. But this song is about their love, which is pure and very pure.
sometimes when we see movies, these scenes are very strong and powerful, but what really makes it more strong and powerful is the actual music behind it. And I'm curious if you might be able to tell us, why do you think it is, as an expert, because you're a composer and a music expert, why is it that the music makes the scene much more powerful?
I'm expert. I'm not sure if I'm enough expert to answer this question, but in my opinion, throughout the film, we only watch this film 2 hours long, maybe or less than 2 hours. So we don't actually know about this person's history when we look at the persons in the film. So histories and situation, how can we all know during the 1 hour and a half? But music implies all those things. So even if we are watching 3 minutes of the sequence, music is explaining a lot of things. For instance, the characters' histories or these personalities and particular situation that this character has. So those things we can understand by the line because we have limited time. But the music is implying all those things in the background. So I guess those things, cultural background or historical backgrounds, and all those characteristic backgrounds, music can give some information in certain particular sequence or throughout the movie, then it's perfectly combining very well. So I think those music is contributing film the most, so that people get this sequence remember as whole movie and special. Or sometimes film, we are watching this film, and sometimes there are things that we don't know what's going on before or after. But this song or music implies a lot of things which cannot be told or which cannot be seen, maybe. So I guess that could be the good song in the film, maybe.
This is not the easiest industry for anyone to work in. And I'm curious, you've chosen to do working on documentaries, on films and other things. What is the appeal of working on a documentary versus an independent film versus a commercial film?
Well, I didn't actually choose the documentary. It came up to me when I didn't have a film project at all for 3 years. There was a documentary request, so I was lucky to do this successful documentary. But I didn't know how successful this documentary would become. I had no idea what it was, but I was just had no chance.
Could you tell us a little bit about the documentary and the type of music you created for that?
Documentary was about the nature. The first one was about the North Pole, Arctic, and they put the name Tears in the Arctic because the ice was melting by the global warming. So the project was about the global warming or climate change. And it was kind of sad because we had to see the polar bear was dying because they were starving by the climate change. So it started from the tear, like a sadness by the natural system. The ecological system is kind of destroying. So that was the first episode, and second one was Amazon, and third one was Africa, and the last one was about the South Pole. So we go to this part of the world and see how those animals and people get suffered by the climate change and how beautiful those natures are. So I really enjoyed working on these documentaries because I love nature. In those animals and places I can't ever go in my life, it's not easy to go there.
Right.
So I was very overwhelmed by the beauty of the nature and the animals, but also sad because we might lose those those things.
You also had these documentaries aired abroad, is that right?
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah, those documentaries were in the Europe, like on TV. Yeah.
Do you know what the feedback or the response was from the viewers?
The documentary, I don't actually know the feedback, but one of my friends was in France and he told me that he saw this program in TV.
Oh wow!
Yeah. But those all the documentaries that I've done for this tier series were very touching kind of documentary. It's about the nature, beauty, and how wonderful those are. But at the same time, as we are losing all those things, so most of people really enjoy these documentaries. Yeah.
You also held a concert based on the tier series in
Right,
August,
right.
and I'd love to hear more about your concert.
I had a concert in Daejeon Film and Music Festival, and it was kind of impressive concert because this documentary and music is about the nature, and we had a concert in the middle of nature. The stage was surrounded by the mountain and the lake and trees, and people in the outdoor and at night looking at the image through the screen and orchestra playing, and it was an amazing experience that I had. Yeah.
Just hearing you describe it, it sounds like an incredible scene. What was the audience's reaction?
Audience reaction was interesting because small kids was like because in the documentary there is a polar bear, baby polar bears, and baby penguins and baby whales. So those small kids really enjoyed that, and they were laughing and talking easily. So the movement was, the atmosphere was totally natural, like a casual and easy, very comfy kind of concert. So it was good.
That's great. You know, as someone who loves to attend concerts and film festivals, I think that to see your music in a concert setting must have been very unique and different for you.
Yes, and I was conducting, and it was my first experience ever to conduct the orchestra.
Wow.
Yes, and I was kind of surprised that I was not that nervous because all the audience were kids, small kids, and they're talking. It's not really, they're not really in the concert hall and formally prepared. It was very easy, mature stuff. So I was able to enjoy all the moments. So
That's fantastic.
it was a very good experience.
Well, congratulations on your conductor debut.
Thank you. Only my music though.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that it makes it so much easier to conduct music that you've created because you're very familiar with.
Only my music I can compose. I can conduct, I think.
Oh, well, that's great.
Thank you.
At the Daejeon International Music and Film Festival 2013, held in August, Kim Hyun-jung conducted an orchestra to play music to highlight the footage of the Tear series, a documentary series that she had previously worked on. As a film music director, her #1 priority is to communicate with the audience through the background music. And on stage, she interacted with the audience and touched their hearts.
Now I'd like to get to ask you about how you got into music.
Well, I started playing piano as a hobby when I was 5. And I liked playing it, so I just continued doing it, but not professional way, just I kept playing it. And once when I was 13, my church had the construction. They wanted to have new building, and there is a pipe organ was donated. So they needed people who can play organ. And I applied the organist because I like the music and I wanted to try. So I practiced organ at the church. I remember myself like alone in the like a big huge church, but I was alone playing the organ, and most of music was Baroque music or like Bach music, and I fell in love with the music.
Wow. I heard that an organ is very complicated to play.
Yes, you have to play also with the legs.
I mean, that's a lot of coordination.
You're kind of dancing.
Maybe that's why you're in such good shape.
Oh, thank you.
Do you still do the organ?
Yes, I play organ every week, every like a Sunday at church.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Starting from the piano, then onto the organ, and then you studied music composition. How did that transition happen?
Well, I wanted to be an organist, but in Korea we had schools which teach the organ, only 2 schools in Seoul at that time. Now we have more schools, but in addition, organists, they selected the people who can play piano well. So it's nothing to do with the organ. Most of people who apply for the organ is not really one who want to be organist, one who want to get into the music school, you know, because piano major was too competitive, so they wanted to get into the music school. So anyway, I was my piano was not good enough to get into the organ, so I got kind of sad. But the friend of my brother had some test, and he told me that I have a perfect pitch. I didn't know that. And he tested me. He asked me to compose some like 2 major melodies, or he asked me to sing with this like a score, like a first reading. It's called like a first reading. So I was good at it, and he suggested me to be a composer, and I responded that, what can women composers do? Women composers do, because I've never seen any women composer in my life. But I did it, and it was so fun. So I just continued doing it.
Wow. And during this time, what did your family do with regard to you wanting to pursue music composition? What was their reaction?
Well, they didn't want me to be an artist, because artist is kind of hard, and our family members and like they are just common people, normal people, so they didn't really support me much. But I really liked it, so I pursued doing it.
Wow. But it's a natural reaction because they love you, right? They want you to be okay. But how were you able to convince them that this is your path that you wanted to take?
I don't know how I did it, but in front of the piano, I kept crying because I didn't realize that how important this music was to me. Because before, when I wanted to be a professional musician, I just wanted to sit back and have some I wanted to be a critic, so that easily criticize their performing, and it's much easier. Because I was feeling the practicing piano was too hard. So I was feeling like that before, but once I've heard that you cannot be an organist, then I wanted to be on the stage, and I didn't realize that before.
Wow.
Yeah.
In a way, you kind of are on stage now. I mean, the movies that you make, or the music that you make for the movies that you work with are on a world stage, and it's maybe not performing an instrument, just one instrument in front of an audience, but it's performing for a world audience, and multiple different facets of your musical abilities are shown. I'd like to ask you about your decision to study abroad. I know at that time in Korea there were fewer schools for music composition. But why did you choose to go abroad? And tell us about where you went and all that.
Well, once I wanted to become a professional musician, I wanted to go to Western country to learn the Western music, because it was Western music. Yeah. So I decided to go to United States and started to study.
Wow. And you chose to go to New York City to study, but before that you also went to Nebraska, is that right?
Yes, I went.
Why did you go to Nebraska?
Nebraska is a small town, and my mother's friends, who lived next door, were living in Nebraska.
So you went to Nebraska for some time to study English.
Yes, and I took the course actually. I had to stay longer than I expected, so that I took the composition class in university. There was University of Nebraska at Omaha. So I took the class, and teacher was amazing. They were wonderful teacher. They taught me the minimalism. So I was able to listen to the Philly Glass music and John Adams and Steve Reich, and it changed my total concept about the music, contemporary music. So it's very good experience, even if short time, like English study in Nebraska. It was very good time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I applied at certain schools, but none of the school accepted me, but NYU. That's why I went to New York School.
Well, it's one of the best schools for the arts, and it's interesting that that was the only place that you were accepted.
They accepted. This school is the only school they accepted me, and the most expensive school that I applied.
So once you went to New York City, I mean, I love New York City. It's one of the most fantastic places on earth, in my opinion. And I went to school there too, uptown. But your experience in NYU must have been such a big change from Seoul and also Nebraska. How did you adjust to life in Manhattan?
Wow, the Manhattan was really diversity. It's like I want to just say words diversity of everything. So maybe my idea about the world and life and music and everything was influenced by living in New York.
When you were studying at NYU, you chose music composition as the field that you wanted to study. But in addition, you decided to study visual media. Tell us about why you also wanted to study visual media.
The only school who accepted me, the New York University, had the film school. So they also had the class for scoring for film and multimedia. So I was able to take those courses, and there was assignments which we have to make the music for a certain clip. And once I showed my work, well, they really liked it, teacher and students liked it. So I realized that I have a talent making music for the image. So it was maybe good chance to get to know who I was. Yeah.
What was your first impression when you started to compose music for film, just even in school?
Oh, it was fun, very fun.
Yeah.
Totally different. Making music is totally different from making music for image. Let's say like just composition for serious music, like contemporary music. Everything has to come out from me. But I don't know what to do. But when there is image, then I know what to do. I know what I need or what we need, what we want to hear. So film music was much more fun.
What do you think contributes to your hard-working nature? I mean, you have a very strong working ethic.
I'm the only one who's strongly work hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm passionate about this characters, like people's life or personality. I try to understand them and try to get to know them and try to express or communicate with them and express in music a way so that other people can understand their stories and personality also. So I want to have some bridge. So music, I think, is playing as a bridge between the directors and the audience. So I try to make all understand each other.
You know, it's very interesting what you just said about music being a bridge, because Korean movies have gained a lot of popularity outside of Korea. You know, the Korean market is kind of what it is. It's a smaller market, but many people abroad are becoming kind of the big fans of Korean cinema, and I think that it has to do a lot with not only the story and the production quality. Of course, it's all great acting, but I think the music also plays a big part, because music is that language that everyone can understand.
Exactly.
It can show the emotion, right?
Right.
And so even if they don't understand the words and they're just looking at the subtitles, your music and how you're able to draw the characters out makes all the difference for foreign viewers.
Exactly. That's the fascinating about the film music, because music is universal language. We don't necessarily have to learn. We are born with it. So small babies, you know, even they understand through the music. They respond to certain, let's say, chords and things like that.
Yes.
So through this music, we can communicate with each other. So that's very attractive thing. Doing the film music for me.
Kim Hyun-jung dreamed of becoming a professional musician, and that was her sole focus in her younger years. There were times when things didn't go as planned, but she persevered through all the difficulties and hardships, and finally got a chance to demonstrate her gift in music. It was her talent, passion, and perseverance that led her to a successful and proliferating career.
You've worked in a lot of different fields. You've worked in films and documentaries and other kinds of visual media with music. And I'm curious if there's a type of project that you would really like to tackle. Is there something that's in your mind?
Yes, I actually want to make music for the dance, for the performance.
Wonderful.
Yeah, or like a musical also. So like a performance in the theater music I want to work
So
on.
a dance performance, does it matter if it's kind of a new type of modern or contemporary dance?
Absolutely, it should be contemporary
Yeah.
or combined, because we are living in 21st century. So I want to work on those kind of things.
Fantastic. Wow. Is there anything that's kind of in preparation right now that you're working on?
No, I'm only thinking of it.
Yeah. I imagine that you have a lot to say through your music, and I'm curious, what are some of the hopes that you have that your music will do?
Well, through music, I want to meet more people, like different culture or different race or different age, and all different type of people. Through the music, we communicate together and we find out what's the similarity, what's the difference, so that we get to know more. So I want to do the music as certain role like that. Yeah.
A true bridge
Yes,
between
must be
cultures.
bridge,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
An ambassador of music, maybe.
Maybe that would be good words. Yeah.
Great. Last but not least, Hyun-jung, what does music and film mean to you?
Through the film, I meet the people who I haven't met before, or who I don't actually know enough. But through the film, I get to know them and get attention to the life of this person or the person like them. So maybe through all different type of film or different type of characters and stories, I meet them and get to know them and try to understand them and express in musical way, so that other people also listen to their life and the words and different situations. So that's kind of interesting to me. And music is just something that I can do, so that I get to know this life, specific life, and I try to make audience listen to them. So I guess that's what makes me happy doing all those stuff.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on my show and to just be able to hear from your perspective as a composer and someone who's worked on some of the best Korean films to date. And I feel that I've learned a lot about what it means to be a composer, and from your perspective, what the Korean film industry is like as well. I think that our audience, as you know, are in 188 countries, and there's a growing desire to know more about Korean film, but also music. And my guess is that your musical creations for the films are going to help bridge the gap that the language may not translate, but the music will definitely translate. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of your music as time goes on, and I wish you the best of luck with everything you have going for you.
Thank you so much. It was very nice meeting you and have chance to talk about all those things. Thank you for listening to what I said. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.